Hello again, yes it's me here, it's Nick, and time for another roundup of games covered so far on the channel. This time round it's Spectrum Games 1051 through to 1100. Will this thing ever end? Probably not, so let's get going then on what we've seen. As usual, if you want to see the full reviews, they are there in the ZX Spectrum playlist, accessible via the channel on the playlist tab, so let's go. We start off with a game called Satan. It's a rather detailed platformer where you must battle the enemies of demons and stuff like that, collecting certain objects. It starts off monochrome, it does change colour from level to level. Animation, well, it's not many frames, but there's a lot of detail, the things moving around. It's an interesting little game. Not many people would have heard of this back in the day, so similar to sort of like Gods, I suppose, with more jumping involved, which was to come later. This one is a homebrew, it's Yo-Yo's Revenge. It was entered in the Crack Games competition, and I think it's a lot better than all those other games that are normally in those sort of ones, so I think the person's really overestimated themselves, or underestimated themselves I should say. The main character looks a little bit like Super Mario. I don't know if that was the intention here, but it's just standard travelling around collecting items and avoid being killed sort of thing, so a rather fun platformer there. Would have done well okay in the day. Helicopter is spelt with a K in the middle for some reason. It's quite annoying this with quite a lot of bugs, but essentially you fly a helicopter through some green terrain, or a cavern for some reason. Why would you fly a helicopter through a cavern? I don't know. But there, to get to from the start bits in red to the finish bit in red to get to the next stage. The screen, the game freezes quite a lot, I must admit, and the collision detection isn't brilliant, but anyway, if you had it back in the day, it would have excited you and infuriated you at the same sort of measure. Egghead to the rescue. This was released as a cover tape, expanding off the original Egghead game. Great music in this one to keep you entertained, collects lots of objects, and your friend Egghead is back to save the day, or not save the day, depending on how you look at it. Written by Jonathan Caldwell, who made AGD, arcade game designer, which made a lot of homebrews possible there, and the market has been rather flooded with platformers, but this is one of the original ones. Egghead to the rescue, hooray! Now, Eagle 1, this is a homebrew, there's not much to this game. Controlling the speed of your descent, you must land this ship to get the highest score. The softest landing gets the highest score, based loosely on the show, the kids' sci-fi show 1999 from back in the day. It feels a bit like a mini game. It's supposed to be a part of a much bigger game, but it's interestingly coded. It's nice to see, but not a great deal to the thing. Trying to land as softly as you possibly can. Yes. Now we go to Play for Your Life, an isometric game which doesn't quite work in my opinion. But anyway, it's set over different stages. You must knock this ball 3 times into a circle there. If you do that, it's on to the next stage, and it gets a little bit more difficult with computer opponents and other obstacles as well. The computer opponent is quite often trying to knock the ball into the opposite hole, and if that happens, it's game over Big Nose. And we all know what game over Big Nose is. It moves rather slowly, like a lot of isometric games, and for me, it's not particularly exciting, but clever. International 3D tennis, vector tennis. Now, this is a triumph on the ZX Spectrum in terms of programming. Again, like a lot of tennis games, very hard to control. Match Point's my favourite tennis game. You have this block that appears on the screen telling you when to hit it back to try and give you half a chance. But, you know, kudos for them for even attempting to do this. It's international, it's 3D tennis, but basically it's a load of triangles knocking a ball from one side to the other. Egghead in Space, this is the next one there. Gradually get better and better. No music going on, but there's something does happen when you collect certain objects there. It's in space this time, and the idea is pretty much similar, although you can collect objects to get to other places of the map. Jonathan Caldwell again, he just gets better and better, and there will be a lot of other Egghead games in this Roundup series, so check them all out. You can download them, of course, from a site called Spectrum Computing. Hurrah! This is a rather late development in the ZX Spectrum. It's in the late 90s. CURSA PERICUOLASA, I think it means dangerous track or something like that. It's based, as you can tell, on the arcade game Move Patrol, but the compiler isn't very good, and it moves very, very slow. Too slow to be of any serious excitement. Moon Alert come back out in the day by Ocean in 1984. That's a lot better than this, and I think this was released in 1996. But anyway, interesting to see nonetheless, but for this sort of like a late release, it should have been a lot better. Mythbusters, influenced by Afterburner, and what's its advantage over Afterburner is you don't die straight away. You've got an energy gauge. If you bash into stuff, that goes down ever so slightly. Quite short stages as well to keep you entertained. You might very well complete this on your first go, really, such is the low difficulty there. But you know, you have to concentrate, weave around. Success isn't quite as random as some of the other games in this sort of like ilk, so hooray for that. Percy the Potty Pigeon, a very odd sort of game, but you control this pigeon who must collect worms on different screens, scrolling horizontally, and feed all the pigeons. Now, if you collect all of them, it's on to the next stage with slightly more obstacles and stuff to happen. You don't get many games like this nowadays, in fact none, and that's what the ZXspectrum was good at. He's Potty, he's a pigeon, and also he can drop stuff on cars and completely demolish them, which is quite nice to see. Now we have a shooter. It's Mr. Heli, a horizontal shooter, but it does go up and down occasionally as well. It's based on an arcade game. You can shoot these blocks for upgrades, but basically shoot everything that you see. On the next stage, it gets a little bit more tricky because you've got to go through caverns and weave past dreaded enemies there. But it does provide a challenge back in the day. You know it's called Mr. Heli because it says it across the top all the time. So it also come out on the Commodore Amiga and various other systems there. Egghead Entertained, this is Egghead again, and the music really lifts on this one. You've got a certain amount of time to collect all the objects there, and they just get better and better, as I said before. Great music there. If you're unfamiliar with any of the Egghead games, I would say play them all in the order that they come out, because it's a nice character. I prefer Horace, but he's not too far off being a creature like him. You probably won't complete any of them, but maybe you will. Listen to this. Alien Syndrome, one of the classics back in the day. You control a lone marine going through various space stations shooting aliens, and you must rescue your comrades there. You can choose to be a male or female hero. If you're female, you can't escape the likeness of Ellen Ripley in the film Aliens there. There's different power-ups on all the levels there. Flamethrowers, lasers to try and aid you in your quest, and you've also got a map you can bring up to if you hit the right sort of like console. It's a bit of a challenge. It's top-down stuff, and here's Passing Shot on the ZXspectrum again. Of course, it's a tennis game. They've got different angles here. It's based on the arcade cabinet back in the day. It's easier than a lot of them, but the changing of viewpoints will make it a little bit tricky, and I seem to be just hitting the ball up in the air all the time. Maybe I was playing like a nincompoop, but as always, dodgy gameplay, nonsense chat, and at least try and get a point. Play in tennis if you're sort of like lucky. Homebrew time, it's WALDO'S Life, and these are influenced by the works of Egghead, which we saw earlier on, and it's quite comparable to that as well. It's different enough, the character's nice and cute, the music fits well with the genre as well. I like that each screen has a different like name to it, and I always like games that do that. It adds a bit of adventure and a bit of character to each of the screens. It's been very well done, this one. Again, you can download it from Spectrum Computing, WALDO'S Life. Fire Gear is a horizontal shooter with a rather unique power-up system. You can collect stuff as like coinage, so to speak, and then choose when to cash in your power-up there. Now, you might want to hang on to get the best power-up ever, but then that'll make the existing level you're on a little more difficult, so you might want to keep going for the easy ones. It's rock hard, music to accompany you all the way to entertain you, so it's one of those, and it's been well designed as well, not using a great deal of the screen. Soldier of Light, now this is really tricky, this game. You control a spaceman jumping over stuff. From level to level, you must blast everything there, as you might expect, and before your time runs out. The enemies do keep respawning, so there's no point staying where you are, because they will attack you once again. So go. If you completed this, you are a super duper ooper game player. Check out the reviews of any of these if you want further information. Agatha Adventure, this is the game that should have come before WALDO'S Life, but I reviewed them in the wrong order again. So it's quite similar to that, different room names, good level design there. Very comparable to the Egghead games, but we've got lots and lots of platformers to choose from. In an area which is saturated with them, this is one of the best ones that you really must check out, this and WALDO'S Life, so I highly recommend those. I like it when the authors comment on the videos there as well. So that's good to see. Anaconda, a very basic remake of the Snake game that was on old Nokia phones. What makes this a little bit added difficulty is not only do you have to collect all of these heads there, you can't go back onto your own body. As you see, it's gradually filling up and not getting any smaller, and then you must get to the exit point, which is on the right there, and to be successful. I didn't actually wasn't successful in the review, but I got mightily close. If I played it again, we might be better. Dustin, influenced by games like Joe Blade, I suppose. You are in prison and you must escape with your big clown shoes on. I don't think they're supposed to be clown shoes, but there you go. I didn't have any instructions to this game, so I was just wandering around like a nincompoop. But you must collect objects, a bit like the Great Escape really, which was isometric, to try and get out. If there's guns to collect, you beat up these police officers and get them there. Guess what's coming up next? It's an Egghead game. Egghead round the med. What can I say that hasn't been said already, but gradually getting better from game to game. On this occasion, though, for some reason, Egghead can do a somersault. It didn't happen in any of the other games, so that was a bit special, but it got aborted. I don't think it happens on the next one. There, interesting colour scheme from here. Again, very, very well made. I'm very, very impressed with all these Egghead games. I can't give them enough plaudits there, so check them out. Terminus, one of those weird games back in the day, using about 4 different sort of like characters which move slightly different, have different stuff to do. You must rescue the head of the Wranglers, I think they're called, who's been locked up by the government for allowing all kids to have too much fun, or something to that degree. It reminded me a little bit of Cybernoid there. You really need to know what you're doing here, or else you're going to go around and get lost. Spectipede, based on the arcade cabinet called Centipede, that was very successful. There's quite a few different versions of this game on the zxspectrum which we've covered. This is one of the best ones. It moves quite fast. It's a bit of a challenge. You can move up and down, but the idea is to destroy all the segments of the centipede coming down the screen, by also avoid getting killed by fleas and spiders and all other sort of life. Yes, kill those mushrooms, baby. Egghead Goes to Town. This is the best one of the lot, really. It plays music every time you collect a item. Good enemies there. And what's the addition to this is, as you can see, fall too far and you, because you're an egg, you will crack and the whole screen will display that cracked yolk there. So that's a good bit of fun too, a good addition. Look at the screen names there. They're flashing all different colours. That's rather cool. Adds an extra sense of style to the whole affair. Alien Maze. Now, a very basic maze game. There was quite a few of these back in the day. In the early stages, you can bring out a screen if you lose your sense of direction, which I do. But it's not using a great deal of the screen, so I have to mark it down for there. You have to collect a certain code to set off a bomb to destroy this alien maze. But there's other better maze games available. But we'll probably cover quite a lot as the times go over. My favourite one is 3D Monster Maze, especially the remake. Spectrum Scramble, based on Scramble from the arcades. My favourite game in this genre was Penetrator. Doesn't move particularly well in terms of the scrolling, but it does represent the game Scramble okay, so to speak. Yes, it might do your eyes in a little bit. Just survive as long as you possibly can. I suppose the modern day version of this might be Flappy Bird. We just go on and on and on and on over different stages. Avoid getting hit by flying rockets and radar dishes trying to track you down. Amusement Park. This is another homebrew by Jonathan Corbell, but slightly different, based on the game Theme Park, which came out on the PC, Commodore Amiga and PlayStation there. But basically you must build up your theme park, set prices for rides, make it a big success, get people coming in, feed them, run souvenir shops, and make your park bigger and bigger, and essentially don't go bankrupt. There's not too many games like this on the ZX Spectrum, so that was really good to see. Pogo, based on the game Cuba from the arcades, quite difficult to control. First of all, you're bouncing up and down this pyramid. Every time you jump one of these hexagons, it changes it to a different colour. You must change them all to the required colour to get to the next stage. Sometimes it's one change, sometimes it's two changes, but all the time avoid all these enemies going backward and forward. There's lifts either side. If you get into trouble, you can jump onto them to try and escape. It's not always very, very helpful though. Rallycross, an example of a game that looks absolutely brilliant but plays absolutely terrible. I mean, this game could have been really, really good from what was there. It played a bit like Ivan Stewart's Super Off-Road Racer, but it doesn't. The controls are too fiddly. Most of the time you'll be struggling to hold on to the track, and it's an opportunity lost, which is a big shame. If only someone could do a mod to improve the control system, then you might do well. I struggle to even get off the first track here. Sea Dragon, it's sort of like a version of Scramble. It's a homebrew, but it's underwater this time. You control this submarine. There's various different speeds you can use. This is on the normal one. Shoot these mines out the way, go through caverns, don't bump into the sides, and don't get shot by emplacements that be around the place. Really cool game, and really, really addictive as well. See how well it's scrolling compared to that Scramble game we looked at a little bit earlier on, and see how far things have come. It's Sea Dragon, a great name, a cyan submarine. What's not to like? One of the traditional shooters from back in the day, influenced by Astro Blasters in the arcades. Your gun will overheat if you shoot too often, and your fuel's going down all the time. Different waves of aliens, a great variety of aliens, and I think we've covered quite a few games, Commodore 64 and everything really, based loosely on Astro Blasters, successful as it was. It's good seeing what ships they use though as well. Yes, that will keep you entertained back in the day. DYNATRON Mission, a very nice looking platformer there, a fantasy platformer. It doesn't move particularly well, that's what lets it down. You see my heartbeat in the middle, that represents your energy levels and stuff. You can press fire button to go a bit quicker, but that forces your energy to go down. Jumping is very, very imprecise on this. On the screenshots when I made it look a lot better than it actually is. It was okay, but it frustrated me quite a bit, this one. DYNATRON Mission. Aliens NEOPLASMA, one of the better homebrews I've seen in terms of graphics. Influenced heavily by the Aliens films created by Ridley Scott. You control this lone warrior. Look at that, look at the animation of that alien there, that's cool. You need to solve what's gone on here to open bits of the ship to find out what's gone on, clear everything, and then get on to the next part. But you know, looks absolutely gorgeous, sounds absolutely gorgeous, and plays really, really well. If you die, you can continue from where you left off. Corruption, I didn't really get the hang of this at all. It's influenced by Space Panic from the arcades. Basically, there's these aliens that got into the skyscraper, and they're corrupting it by turning the floor green. If too much turns green, you've had it. Essentially, you need to make spikes fall from the ceiling, which I never worked out how to do, which create a hole, and then direct the aliens to fall down that hole so they eventually die. It's not a great deal of fun, to be honest with you. The instructions are very imprecise, telling you what to do, so even if you had them, you still not might have got anywhere. KAMIKAZE, another shooter, feels pretty much like Atari 2600 game. It's not a bad thing. I think it's influenced by Phoenix, I think here, but really, really cool. If I had this back when I had a Spectrum back in the day, well, first I had a Spectrum, I should say, I would have played this really a lot of times. I prefer Space Raiders, which is a lot more basic, of course, but that's the one I own, so I've got more nostalgia for that. But this is good. Influenced by Galaxian as well, one would have to say. But yeah, check this one out. It's KAMIKAZE, Baby Man versus Man Baby. This was sent to me by the author. It's a homebrew. It's a shooter. Shoot all these babies. You've gone back with a walk to pistol. You've been gone back in time. Your arch nemesis has been transformed into a baby for some reason, and so have you. Over different stages, you must do them what for to stop them growing up and be turning into a mastermind villain. And we don't like mastermind villains, especially if they're a baby. That just takes the mickey even more. This game, PLEXAR, influenced by Trailblazer. Really, really good scrolling here, what they've done here. This isn't a homebrew, this was released back in the day. It's over like 3 different stages and 3 different worlds. The first one, you got to avoid holes in the network there. Next one, it continuously scrolls this one. The next stage, it doesn't continually scroll. You go left and right to avoid gaps there. And one of the stages is even upside down. It's slower than Trailblazer, so if you struggle with that, you might want to go for that instead. Deflector. Now, this is an interesting puzzle game. The laser beam comes out the initial start gun. You must deflect it with the mirrors to the end gun and also take away all the nose. In here, they're represented by these round magenta things. So, yeah, if you direct the laser in the wrong place, you can get an overload and it's game over quite quickly. Reviewed this on the Commodore Amiga as well. That version was slightly easier than this one, but it's a thinking game up against the clock as well. Bomber Pengo. There, I struggled with this one, but it's playing the music aha all the way through it. Essentially, arrange these bombs to create stepping stones to get all the hearts on the stage. Avoid falling on the green bushes of hell, let's call it. The author did tell me a few tips afterwards, because I was so hopeless at the thing, what I can do, and that did indeed help. But a great game, but very tricky. Not as easy as some, but sure looks nice. 1999, Prepare for Death, not based on the film 1999, or the TV show. You control this thing that looks a little bit like a fly. Apparently all the aliens from other games have come together to try and destroy the human race. There, I think. Now, I think you're trying to destroy the human race as well yourself. But anyway, 1999, not based on the song by Prince. Just basically like any other shooters, the backstory is irrelevant. Just shoot as much as you can, and you know, it's as tricky as our time. Penalty soccer, what the hell's going on here? You will complete it with your first or second go. You control the goalkeeper going left and right to save goals, and there's 10 waves, I think, or it might be 9, of top penalty shooters from football strikers back in the day. You must save it all from them. There is a dive button, but you don't need it, and the game's ridiculously easy. Longevity on this, almost 0, I would have thought. A very poor game. It feels a bit like a tech demo as this cannonball tries to go into the goal here, and yes. Baby Man vs Nappy Bird, heavily influenced by the game Flappy Bird from iOS and phone sort of like systems. A bit of inertia, one button. This bird has stolen this baby nappy in hot pursuit, but anyway, you must just go between these walls where the gaps are as long as possible. You can fire eggs to create a bit more of a hole. You've got an unlimited number of those, but they're a bit of a slow shooter, so you can't rely on that all the time. Go bird go! It's Baby Man versus Nappy Bird. Speed Zone, a massive ship here, made of different colours, but unfortunately, because it's a massive ship, you've got less screen to work with, and it's just too darn fast. It's too darn fast, and that destroys all the playability. Shield is spelt wrong, which a lot of people noticed in the review. It says shield, but anyway, it could have been good if they slowed it down a little bit, but for some reason they didn't, or made the ship slightly smaller, but they definitely wanted a big ship. The ship looks cool, but the screen's not big enough for the game and the actual speed. 3D Maze, it's a 3D Maze game again. This one's got a checkered floor, using a lot more of the screen than Alien Maze did, so kudos there. Wandering around, you've got a different set of mazes to choose from. There's no real jeopardy apart from the time ticking down, but finding the exit before the time runs out. It's a bit later than a lot of the maze games this was released, so most of the time you'll be wandering around trying to find the exit. There's no bomb here, there's no ghost chasing you, there's no monster chasing you, so there's not a great deal of excitement, but it sure looks nice. Almost Bosconian by Gabrielle Moore. Now, by his own admission, this was made when he was first getting into coding. I still think it's a pretty good effort in terms of the code itself, but as a game it doesn't particularly work. Based on the game Bosconian from the arcades. It was converted Bosconian 87 back in the day pretty well, but yeah, this is alright to see, but it's not the greatest in the world. Gabriel Moore's done much better games than this, but this is right near the beginning when it was just learning stuff. Game Over 2, or PHANTIS, yeah, it starts off as a shooter, then ends out as a platformer. Quite difficult, like a lot of ZXspectrum games were, so not many people, I don't think, would have got to the platform or arcade adventure bit where you're running around shooting stuff, and would have just done it as a shooter. It moves okay there, but it's not a great deal of space to work with, and those yellow things do get a bit in the way and distract you. But it's Game Over 2. The cover art would have sold a lot of them on its own. Sword Fight. Now, this is very basic from Sunshine Books in the early 80s. I see what they was attempting there. Fighting of French guardsmen in Cyan. There's 3 sort of like moves, but it doesn't really work against a computer. Against a human person, it might work a little bit better. But yeah, a lot of people said it reminded them of Highlander, which came a bit later. But there's not a great deal of fun to be had here. But 1983, very, very early. Big men to control there. Game from Inafuto, which I always like looking at. It uses those magenta ghosts a lot. It's a platformer over single screens, but essentially you must collect all these gold stars there. It's called Cracky because the ledges will crack there. You don't want to fall down there onto the actual magenta ghost boys. Lots of different levels, but you can continue where you left off by hitting enter button rather than space each time, which is great, so that makes it a little bit more addictive than it perhaps would have been. Inafuto, you can always trust his games. Game Over, the game that before Phantis, of course, starts off with platformers. This time you've got bombs to collect there, you've got to go through different planets, ridding it all of evil. Different platforms, those barrels contain upgrades. Again, very, very tricky, but I say that about a lot of ZX Spectrum games because indeed they were. Again, the cover artwork would have sold a lot of the games, if I can speak properly for a second there, because teenage boys were so fickle. But anyway, so that is the 50 games there. I hope you liked having a look at those, 1051 through to 1100. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already, because that keeps the thing going. Massive thank you to the members. We'll keep going and going and going as long as I can do it, as long as you keep watching, and as long as I've got the support. So here we go, on to the next chapter. So take great care of yourself. Thanks for watching that. Please put any comments there you have for any of those games. More than welcome. Take great care of yourself and are very fond. Goodbye.
Goodbye.